Daf Yomi, Tractate Horayot, or Horios, depending on your pronunciation. Horayot, page 6. Let's start from the bottom of 5b. It is taught in Brayta that Rabbi Shimon says, what is the meaning of when the verse says, and a second young bull shall you take as a sin offering, in Numbers 8, verse 8. In the context of the purification of the Levites in the aftermath of the sin of the golden calf, if this is written to teach that they are two, meaning that there is an additional bull sacrificed, isn't it already stated, and sacrifice the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering unto the Lord, Numbers 8:12. Rather, one might have thought that the sin offering that is sacrificed for the Levites shall be eaten like other sin offerings. To counter this, the verse states, and the second bull, to underscore that it is the second to the burnt offering and similar to it, just as the burnt offering is not eaten. Now we're turning to Horayot, page 6, Vav Amud Aleph. Afchatat lo nechelet. So too, this sin offering is not eaten. Kayotze bo Amar Rav Yossi Haboim yeshvi hagoyla ekrevu oilos, in brackets it says olos al Elohei Yisrael porim shnayim osar v'noimel hakol oile so geleitich efshir shechat es oile ela hakol keola ma oile lo necheles afchatus lo necheles. Titania Rav Yehuda Omer Al Avodah Zarah Heviyun Ve'Omer Rav Yehuda Shmuel Al Avodah Zarah She'asu B'Mitzvah Yo. Okay. Similarly, Rabbi Yossi said that it is stated with regard to those who returned to Zion from Babylonia in the days of Ezra, the children of the captivity who came out of exile sacrificed burnt offerings to the God of Israel, 12 bulls for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 lambs, 12 goats as a sin offering. All this was a burnt offering unto the Lord, Ezra 8:35. The question arises, does it enter your mind to say all this was a burnt offering? Is it possible that a sin offering is a burnt offering? Rather say, all this was like a burnt offering, just as a burnt offering is not seen, so too this sin offering is not eaten, as it is taught in a Brayta that Rabbi Yehuda says it was an atonement for idol worship that they brought them. And Rabbi Yehuda says, that Shmuel says, it was atonement for the idol worship that they practiced during the days of Zedekiah. Bishlom Rabbi Yehuda, Mishkachas lo lehan nishnayim asar chatois, kigoyin shechatu shneim asar shvatim, demaisu shnayim asar sirim minami, dechatu shiva shvatim Moshe Inach begerira, ורבי שמעון נמי משכחת לו, כגון שחטו 11 שבטים, דמייסו 11 צעירים, והדחתם בית דין אלא. לרבי אדם בית דין מבין, ולא ציבור, 12 הכי משכחת לה, כגון דחטו והדר Chatu v'hadar chatu ad tresar zimni. The Gemara clarifies, granted, according to Rabbi Yehuda, whose opinion is cited in the Mishnah, you find liability for these 12 sin offerings in a case where 12 tribes sinned by engaging in idol worship, as in that case they bring 12 goats. Alternatively, you find liability in a case where 7 tribes sinned, and The rest of these tribes that did not sin are drawn after the majority of tribes that sinned, and each brings a sin offering. And according to Rabbi Shimon as well, you find liability for these 12 sin offerings in a case where 11 tribes sinned, as in that case they bring 11 goats and the other goat is brought by the court. But according to Rabbi Meir, who says that the court brings an offering and the public does not, and only one bull is sacrificed, how do you find this a case of liability to bring 12 offerings? The Gemara answers, it is in a case where they sinned and then sinned again and then sinned again until they sinned 12 times. The Gemara asks, but didn't those who sinned by engaging in idol worship during the time of Zedekiah and the Babylonian exile already die? How can their descendants bring a sin offering on their behalf? The status of those animals is that of a sin offering whose owner has died, which is disqualified from sacrifice on the altar. Amarav Papa, Ki Gamiri Chatas Shemesu, Be'aleha Bebiso, Hanimili Biachid, Avalo Betzibur, Befi She'e Misa Betzibur, Minale Rav Papa Ha, Ilema Midichsiv Tachas Avisecha Yubanecha, Ihachi Afilu Biachid Nami. Rav Papa said, when it is learned as a tradition that the fate of a sin offering whose owners have died is to allow the animal to die without its being sacrificed, this matter applies specifically with regard to an individual who died, but not with regard to a congregation, because there is no death with regard to a congregation. The entity of the congregation remains even when specific members die. The Gemara asks, from where does Rav Papa derive this? If we say that he derives it from that which is written, instead of your fathers shall be your sons, Psalms 45:17, indicating that as long as the sons are alive, it is as though the fathers are alive. Then, if so, the same should be true even with regard to an individual as well, and sons should be able to sacrifice the sin offerings of their dead fathers. Ela Dukia de Rav Papa mi Sa'ir de Rosh Chodesh. Diama Rachmana Maisi Mitruas Hadishka. V'ha Maisi Ru Mischael. V'ha Nachtifais Yahechi Maisu. Ela Shmamina. Chatat Shemetu Ba'aleha. Yitzhibo Kereva. Rather, the inference of Rav Papa is from the goat of the new moon, as the merciful one states, bring those sin offerings from the collection of the temple treasury chamber, where the half shekels contributed by the Jewish people every Adar are stored. But haven't some of the Jewish people died since Adar? If so, how can those who remain bring a sin offering if some of the owners of the offering have died? Rather, learn from it that a sin offering whose owners have died may be sacrificed in the case of a communal offering. Midami Sayadosh Chodesh Dilma Limaisu Mitzibu. Avlach Avadi Maisu. Ela Time Rav Papa Mecha. Dichsiv Kaper L'Amcha Yisrael Asher Padita Hashem. Oruya Kekapara Zo Shetekaper Al Yotzei Mitzrayim Midichtiv Asher Padita. The Gemara asks, are these matters comparable? In the case of the goat of the new moon, perhaps no one from the public died in the interim, but here, in the case of those who returned to Zion from Babylonia, those who engaged in idol worship in the days of Zedekiah certainly died, as many years have passed since then. Rather, the reason for the opinion of Rav Papa is, from here, as it is written in the confession, recited by the sages during the rite of the heifer whose neck is broken. Atone for your people Israel, atone for your people Israel whom you have redeemed, Lord. Deuteronomy 21:8. This atonement is fit to atone even for those who emerged from Egypt, from the fact that it is written, whom you have redeemed. The reference is to those whom God redeemed from Egypt, even though they died long ago. Midami hachakuli isnun migoy dirchabla achayim dirchabla nami amesim elahacha mihavo chayim in hachinami ketiv v'rabim mekohanim avim v'shehavot v'gomer. The Gemara asks, are these matters comparable? There, in the case of the heifer whose neck is broken, all of the residents of the city on whose behalf the rite was performed are present when they perform the rites. And since it atones for the living, it also atones for the dead. But here, in the case of those returning from Zion, are any of the people who worshipped idols during the time of Zedekiah alive when the offering is sacrificed? Our answer is yes. It is indeed so that there were people from that period still alive. As is written, many of the priests and Levites and heads of patrilineal houses, the elders that had seen the first house standing on its foundation, wept with a loud voice when this house was before their eyes, and many shouted aloud for joy. Ezra 3:12. Okay. Wow. And bracket it says the Gemara challenges, but perhaps those elders were few in number and were not many, and the majority of those present consisted of people who were not alive during the days of Zedekiah. The Gemara answers, isn't it written, and the people could not discern the noise of the shout of joy from the noise of the weeping of the people, as the people shouted with a loud shout, and the noise was heard afar off. Ezra 3:13. This indicates that the weeping elders who survived from the era of Zedekiah outnumbered the younger people. Okay. V'ha mazidin havu hora'as shah haita achnami mistavra irate mahachi elim tishim v'shisha kivasim shivim shiva. Connected me, Ela Horad Shah Haita Hachanami Horad Shah Haita. The Gemara asks, but didn't those who engaged in idol worship in the era of Zedekiah do so intentionally? Sin offerings are brought for unwitting, not intentional sins. The Gemara answers, it was a provisional edict issued in the exigent circumstances to enable them to sacrifice a sin offering to atone for an additional intentional sin. The Gemara comments, so too it is reasonable as if you do not say so. With regard to those 96 rams, 77 lambs, to what do they correspond? Rather, the sacrifice of those rams and lambs was a provisional edict. Here too, concerning sin offerings for intentional transgressions, it was a provisional edict. Tanamanan my meisechad min hatzibor chayavin echad mi beis din betuin my Tana Amar Chiza Amar Zera Amar Yemri Amarav Rab Meir Hid Amar Beis Dim Mevim Otzibor Hilkach Meis Echad Min Atzibor Chayavin Yakayim Kule Beis Din Meis Echad Mi Beis Din Betuchin Yehavila Chatas Shemeis Echad Min Ashutim Mshum Hachi Betuchin. On a related note, the sages taught if the court unwittingly issued a ruling and the congregation performed the transgression on the basis of that ruling, and before the offering was brought, one member of the public died, and they are liable to bring an offering. If one member of the court died, they are exempt. The Gemara asks, who is the Tana who stated this halacha? Rav Chizda said that Rav Zera said that Rav Yirmiyah said that Rav said. It is Rabbi Meir who says the court and not the public brings the offering. Therefore, if one member of the public died, the court is liable, as the entire court remains intact. If one member of the court died, the court is exempt. As the halacha is, halacha here is like the halacha of a sin offering, that one of the partners who co-owned the offering died, and due to that reason, the court is exempt. Masri Rav Yosef, Pinakal Rav Shimon, Diaman Beis Din Tzibur Beis Echad Min Tzibur Chayavin. Dein Tzibur Beisim Meisechad Mi Beis Din Betorin Kedamrin and Nachat Shutrinhi. Rabbi Yosef objects to this. Let's establish the halacha. And according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who says the court to the public brings the offering, therefore, if one member of the public died, the court is still liable as the public does not die. But if one member of the court died, the court is exempt. In accordance with that, which we say, it is the sin offering belonging to two partners. Amarle Abaye, Shamin Ale, Rabbi Shimon Damar, Chad Lashut Vimena Meisa, Ditanya, Paradisa Ir Shal Yom Rim Shadu, Yifrish Acherim Tachtehem, Yimusu Kulam, Tivrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Amel, Yeru Lefi She'en Chatas Tibo Meisa. Abaye says, Rabbi Yosef, we heard with regard to Rabbi Shimon, that he says a sin offering belonging to partners, it's not left to die, as is taught in a Braita, in a case where a bull and a goat of Yom Kippur were lost, and one designated other animals in their place, and then the lost animals were found, they shall all be left to die. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say, they shall graze until they develop a blemish due to the fact that a communal sin offering is not left to die. The bull sacrifice on Yom Kippur belongs to the priests and is therefore a sin offering belonging to partners. Nevertheless, Rabbi Shimon holds that its status is not that of a bull whose owners died. Amar le Rav Yosef, Kohanim kok amrit. Amar Shani Kohanim dikro kahal dichtiv al Kohanim yakol ha'am hakahal yichaber. The Rabbi Yosef says to buy a priest, you say priests are different as they are characterized as a congregation in and of themselves, as is written, and for the priests and for all the people of the congregation he shall atone. Leviticus 16:3. And now we turn to 6b, top of the page, to be continued after the hafsakah, which means after the break. Continuing on the top of 6b, Ella me'ata naito par behora'ah chitema chinami tefeiluhu shvatim. The Gemara challenges, if that is so, that the priests are characterized as a congregation, let them bring a bull as an unwitting communal offering if they perform a transgression on the basis of the ruling of the court. And if you would say, indeed, it is so, that is difficult, as the number of tribes has increased to 13. Ela amar Rav Acha Rabbi Yaakov, Shivto shel Levi lo ikru kahal dichtiv, hineni mafrecha v'hirbiticha unetaticha likahal amin b'gomer, kol sheyesh lo achuza ikri kahal, rather, Rav Acha, son of Rabbi Yaakov, said, the tribe of Levi is not characterized as a congregation. As it is written, behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will make you a congregation of peoples, and I will give this land to your descendants after you for an everlasting possession. Genesis 48:4. It is derived from here that any tribe that has an ancestral possession bequeathed to it is characterized as a congregation, and any tribe that does not have an ancestral possession bequeathed to it is not considered as a congregation. The tribe of Levi has no ancestral land, and the priests who are from the tribe of Levi have no ancestral land. Imkain Chasrilu Shnei Masar Shvatim. Amravai Ephraim Manasseh Kiruvan Shimon Yuli. Amravai Kintiv Hashem Achem Yikaru. Vanachalatam Venachala Hukshu Velo Ledavar Achel. The Gemara challenges, if so, the 12 tribes are lacking in number, as without the tribe of Levi there are only 11. Abaye said that it is stated, Ephraim and Manasseh shall be like Reuven and Shimon to me. Genesis 48, verse 5. And they are counted as 2 tribes. Rava said, but isn't it written, after the name of their brethren they shall be called their inheritance? Genesis 48 verse 6, indicating that it is with regard to inheritance that they are likened to tribes, but not with regard to another matter. The Gemara challenges, and are they not considered independent tribes concerning other matters as well? But aren't they separate with regard to the banners under which the Jewish people travel in the wilderness? There were 3 tribes represented by each banner, and the 3 tribes under the banner of Menashe were Menashe, Ephraim, and Benjamin. The Gemara answers in accordance with the division of the tribes according to their inheritances. So was the division of the tribes in their encampment around the tabernacle. This was in order to honor the banners, so that there would be 3 tribes affiliated with each banner. ומה ראה משה לעשות 12 ימי חנוכה? כדי לחלוק כבוד לנשיאים. The Gemara asks, but aren't they separate with regard to the matter of princes of the tribes? As the tribes of Ephraim and Menashe had separate princes, the Gemara answers, that was in order to honor the princes, and there is no proof that they are 2 different tribes with regard to other matters. This is, as it is taught in the Braita, Solomon set 7 days of dedication of the Holy Temple. And what did Moses see that led him to set 12 days of dedication to the tabernacle? He did so in order to honor the tribal princes, so that the prince of each tribe would bring his offering on his own day. Due to the honor each prince deserved, Ephraim and Menashe are considered 2 tribes. My Haviyallah, the Gemara asks, what conclusion was reached about Rabbi Shimon's opinion? Does he hold that a sin offering brought by several partners is different from a communal sin offering, as Rabbi Yosef explained, or does he hold that there is no difference between them, as Abaye explained? Tashima Detanya Rabbi Shimon Omer Chamesh Chataot Meitot Vlad Chatat U Tmurat Chatat Chatat Shemetu Baaleha Chatat Shenichapru Baaleha Chatat Sheavra Shinata ואי אתה יכול לומר ולד חטאת בציבור שאין ציבור מפרישין נקבה ואי אתה יכול לומר תמורת חטאת בציבור שאין תמורה בציבור ואי אתה יכול לומר חטאת שמתו בעליה בציבור שאין ציבור משים. The Gemara suggests come and hear proof, as it is taught in Braita, that Rabbi Shimon says, there are 5 sin offerings that are left to die, as they may not be sacrificed. The offspring of a sin offering born after its mother was consecrated as a sin offering, the substitute of a sin offering which assumes a sacred status but may not be sacrificed, a sin offering whose owners have died, a sin offering whose owner's sin was atoned for with another offering, and a sin offering whose first year has passed, as a sin offering may be brought only within the animal's first year. And you cannot state a case of the offspring of communal sin offering, as the congregation does not designate a female as a sin offering, and you cannot state a case of a substitute of a communal sin offering, as there is no substitute for a communal offering. And you cannot state a case of a sin offering whose owners have died in the case of the communal sin offering, as the public does not die. Sheniskabru baleho, Sheniskabru baleho, כשעבדו שנעשה לא שמענו יכול ימוסו אמרת ילמוד סתום מן המפורש בה מצינו בבלד חטאת ותמורת חטאת שמייסו בעליה ביחד דבר אמורים ולא בציבור אף שנזכפרו בעליה ושעברה שנתיה ביחד דברים אמורים ולא בציבור. With regard to a sin offering whose owner's sin was atoned for, and a sin offering whose first year has passed, we did not hear whether the halacha applies to communal sin offerings as well. One might have thought they too shall be left to die. You say one shall derive the vague from the explicit. What did we find with regard to the offspring of a sin offering, the substitute of a sin offering, and the sin offering whose owners died? We found that these matters are stated only with regard to an individual sin offering, but not with regard to communal sin offerings. So too, these matters of a sin offering whose owner's sin was atoned for, and the sin offering whose first year has passed, are stated only with regard to an individual sin offering, but not with regard to a communal sin offering. Likewise, one may derive that an individual's sin offering must be left to die, while a sin offering owned by partners is not left to die. The Gemara asks, and does one derive the halacha of the possible from the impossible? Some of these cases are, by their very nature, not relevant to communal sin offerings. One cannot derive the halacha from them with regard to cases that could be relevant to communal sin offerings. The Gemara answers, Rabbi Shimon learns all these halachot of sin offerings that are left to die as a tradition in one place, meaning as a single halacha in cases where not all the categories of sin offerings left to die apply. No category of sin offerings that are left to die applies. Hadran Olach Horu Bezdin. This concludes the first chapter of Horayot, of Horu Beit Din, and now we continue on to the second chapter. Starting the new Mishnah, Hora Kohen Mashiach Liatzmo Shogeg Vyasa Shogeg Mevi Pal Shogeg Vyasa Mezid Vyasa Shogeg Pato Shehoiras Kohen Mashiach Liatzmo Gehoiras Beis Din Netzibur. In a case where an anointed priest, meaning a high priest, issued an erroneous ruling for himself, permitting performance of an action prohibited by Torah law, if he issued the ruling unwittingly and then unwittingly performed the transgression in accordance with his ruling, he is liable to bring a bull as a sin offering for an unwitting transgression by the anointed priest. If he issued the ruling unwittingly and performed the transgression intentionally, or if he issued the ruling intentionally and performed the transgression unwittingly, he is exempt from liability to bring any offering, as there is a principle. The legal status of the ruling of an appointed priest for himself is like that of the ruling of the court for the general public. Therefore, the high priest is liable to bring the bull as a sin offering for his unwitting transgression in a case when the court would be liable to bring the bull as a communal sin offering for an unwitting transgression performed by the general public. And now for the Talmud. The Gemara says, Shogeg, Vyasa Shogeg, maybe par Pshita. The Mishnah teaches, if he issued the ruling unwittingly and then unwittingly performed the transgression in accordance with his ruling, he is liable to bring a bull. The Gemara asks, isn't this obvious? This is certainly a case of an unwitting transgression for which the Torah deems him liable to bring an offering. Amar Abaye, Hachav Abaye Kagon Shehora, Yishachach Me'ez Tam Hora, Uvisha Shita'a Amar Areni Ose Al Da'at Horato, Timahu Ditema Kevan Ti'ilu Mityedale, brackets is Shema. Hadarbe Kamezi Dami Velo Lichayev Mashkulan. Abaye said, what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with a case where he issued an erroneous ruling and forgot the reason that was the basis upon which he issued the ruling, and at the moment that he erred and performed the transgression, he said, I am hereby performing this action with my ruling in mind. As lest you say, since if the reason that was the basis upon which he issued the ruling became known to him at that moment, perhaps he would have retracted his ruling. Therefore, if he nevertheless performed his transgression, his status is like that of an intentional transgressor, and let him not be liable to bring an offering. To counter this, the Talmud teaches us that this too is a case of an unwitting transgression. Meizid v'asa shagi kule, menahani mili ditanu rabbanan le'ashma sa'am, hare mashiach etzibur, shiachol, v'halo dinhu. The Mishnah teaches, if he issued the ruling unwittingly and performed the transgression intentionally, or if he issued the ruling intentionally and performed the transgression unwittingly, he is exempt. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters, the halakha unique to the sin offering of an unwitting transgression by the anointed priest derived? They are derived from a verse, as the sages taught in Brighton. It is written, if the anointed priest shall sin, so as to bring guilt upon the people, Leviticus 4:3, from which it is derived that the liability of the anointed priest is incurred like that of the general public. The Gemara discusses this derivation, as one might have thought that the verse is superfluous. Could this not be derived through logical inference?